Danica Lorer, and this is Lit Happens, your celebration of the literary arts here in Saskatchewan. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Amy Jo Ehman. Now, Amy Jo has written 3 books. She's won a Saskatchewan Book Award, and today she's here to talk about her new book, Saskatoon, A History in Words and Pictures. Amy Jo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danica.
So I'm really excited about this book because I really like pictures. I'm an adult who likes picture books, but I love old photographs. So give me a little background about what led to this book, this wonderful collection.
Well, you know, there have been a number of books written about Saskatoon over the years, really wonderful books, but they were all out of print now. And so the idea was to update the story, bring another book out, and really make use of all the wonderful archival photos that are available to us from the early days in Saskatoon.
And I see you've mentioned where the photos come from. So tell me a little bit about where did you collect all of these photos?
Well, I probably could not have done a book like this without the public library, because they have the local history collection, hundreds and hundreds of photographs to choose from, many of them online if people are interested in just browsing it. So I relied on them very heavily, but I think I used pictures from 7 or 8 different archives, including the Western Development Museum, the Libraries and Archive Canada, the University of Saskatchewan archives, of course, as well. They were very generous with me as well in using their photographs. So it's a collection of photos from different sources.
And the stories, now they would have come from different places.
Oh, there's so many stories about the early days of Saskatoon. You know, the idea of narrowing it down to a few choice stories that would fit in a book of this size was the big task. But my goal in choosing stories is that I wanted people to, and in the pictures, I wanted people to get a sense of, if you look out across the landscape of Saskatoon today, particularly the core part of town, downtown and the first neighborhoods, how did it get where it is today? How do we get here? Why are the bridges where they are? Why is downtown where it is? Where did Saskatoon start and what does it look like now? So that was kind of my guiding principle in choosing the stories and the photos that went into this book.
Now I was really interested because I didn't know this book was coming out, and I attended a walk that you did in May.
Oh, yeah.
And you had an app where you showed us these photographs as we were standing on a certain street. You had us look at a photograph that showed us what the town or the city looked like 100 years ago, which was fascinating to me. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, thank you so much, Danica, for coming out on that day. It was Jane's Walk. And that was on the first block of 21st Street, so the mall and then the first block coming out from the mall. So when you look down the street, you see the Bessborough, but we just walked 1 block. It's my favorite block in this city because so much of the story of the city can be told on that street. So yes, I took a bunch of old photographs, many of which are in this book, and then so we could put them on our phones and just walk around and compare where things had come from. I love doing that.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. And so do you have a favorite photograph of Saskatoon?
I do, and it's from that street. It's that one, there's 3 little children standing on a dusty, muddy street, but they're on a boardwalk. You know, Saskatoon used to have boardwalks, like wooden sidewalks, because the streets were so muddy. There's 3 little children. You're looking down the street. There's nothing at the end of the street, except there's the original post office on 21st Street and where the mall is today, but there's nothing back then. And those kids are so cute. I love that photograph.
And you said you'd read us a little section today.
Yeah, sure, I will. I'm going to read a little section about, the whole book is in little sections, so it's pretty easy to read, but this one has to do with the founding of St. Paul's Hospital. St. Paul's Hospital. And in 1906, 1907, Saskatoon had a typhoid outbreak. There was a lot of typhoid and waterborne illnesses back then before we had water treatment plants, you know. So I wanted to read this little section. St. Paul's Hospital also dates from the typhoid epidemic of 1906. So many people fell sick, including the workers who were building the new CPR rail bridge. That's the bridge that crosses the river at 33rd Street. So many of them got sick that they were being cared for in the rectory of St. Paul's Catholic Church. Now, 2 nuns were passing through the city, and they were persuaded to stay and help nurse these sick. Dr. Willoughby, Saskatoon's first doctor, offered his farmhouse on his homestead on Pleasant Hill as a temporary hospital. It was a little white farmhouse with several additions, but that's where the Willoughby family lived. In 1907, these nursing orders, the Grey Nuns, acquired the Willoughby home on his homestead and transformed it into the first St. Paul's Hospital. And then in 1913, a larger brick hospital was built on the same site after the Willoughby home had served as the nurses' residence for a while. John and Helen Willoughby moved. They were not out of their house for very long. They moved to a mansion on Saskatchewan Crescent West. John did so well in the real estate development of Saskatoon that he stopped practicing medicine. Among his contributions to the civic streetscape are the Willoughby Butler Building on 21st Street, the Willoughby Sumner Block on 3rd Avenue. This is now the Edwards School of Business, and the current home of Mandarin Restaurant on 20th Street. They were all built by Saskatoon's first doctor, who turned into a real estate mogul in early Saskatoon.
It's so interesting when we have those buildings that still, they don't exist as they existed a century ago, but the face has changed, and the insides have changed, but some of these buildings, they live on with constant changing new lives.
They do. They have their stories.
And so, do you have a favorite building in Saskatoon?
I suppose if I was going to pick a favorite building, I might pick, oh boy, that's hard. Well, I think one of my favorite buildings would have to be the Trounce House. So this is the oldest house in Saskatoon right now standing. It was built in 1883, 84. And the Trounce family lived there. And there's a really lovely account of a Christmas party that they had in there. They invited everyone from the community, so there's about 20 people in their house. And they had a Christmas party there. It still stands on 10th Street in Saskatoon, but it has been moved to the back of the property now. It was used as a garage for many years, but it's somewhat been restored. And so if you go down a particular back alley in Saskatoon on 10th Street, you can see the oldest house in the city.
Well, and that's an interesting observation, that sometimes it's not the most beautiful and big and gorgeous architecture that's our favorite building, but something that has a story, and it can be very simple and small and not, not flashy, but it's the stories that draw us to these wonderful images and ideas.
And it is the stories of these old houses that makes them special.
Now, before we go, we only have a short time. I want you to tell me a little bit about the honor that the Provincial Library basically has bestowed upon one of your books.
Yeah, my former book it's called Out of Old Saskatchewan Kitchens. So it's a cookbook of all the old recipes and food traditions that are here on this land of Saskatchewan. So the Saskatchewan Libraries Association has chosen it for their project called One Book, One Province. It takes place in the month of March. So there will be events at libraries and museums and other places around the province in that month. And so they're promoting it as the one book that everybody should read and talk about, and perhaps we'll have some fun talking about foods and food traditions and maybe eating some good foods too during that time.
Well, and it's a wonderful idea of bringing story. I always like bringing story into everything, but story and food together. And it really is part of who we are, the stories of our food and the stories of our families.
You know, we say that stories bring us together, but food brings us together. And so stories and food they can't help but bring us together and have, share our cultures and have some fun.
Well, Amy Jo, it's been really fun talking to you today, and this is a delightful book, and I think it appeals to so many people. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Danica.
I'm Danica Lorer, and this has been Lit Happens. You can find past episodes by going to YouTube and looking for Shaw TV Saskatoon. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter, and you can email me at danicalorer@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.